In your local neighborhood, certain offenses are considered especially detrimental to property values. The authority that investigates these violations is known as the Homeowners Association. The HOA is represented by two separate but equally meaningless groups: the busybodies that report the infractions, and the HOA board that enforces them. These are their stories.
What do we got?
Noise complaint. Neighbor called in about a loud series of bangs she heard at approximately 11:27 last night.
Thought quiet hour started at 10.
Exactly.
Who got in the complaint?
Mrs. Rodriguez at 27 Kleinkrest.
That old bag? She accounted for 27% of our revenue last quarter. This come from her, it must be legit.
Why do you think I dragged you out of bed so early?
HOA!
Watterson, you're gonna want to get a look at this. How long does that grass look to you?
Maybe about 3 1/4 inches.
I was thinking maybe even 3.5.
Doesn't the charter say grass has to be under 3?
Sure does.
Let's take a look out back. Back door's open.
Jesus Christ. Notify next of kin. Somebody's gotta mow that lawn. Boom, bum, bum, ba-dum, boom. Boom, bum, bum, ba-dum, boom, boom.
Bam, 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 bam.
Boom, bum, bum, ba-dum, boom. Boom, bum, bum, ba-dum, boom, boom. Bum, bum, ba-dum, bum. Wow.
Hello, ma'am. My name's Detective Watterson. This is my partner, Detective Bosco.
Who are you guys? What are you, with the FBI or something?
No, ma'am. HOA. We were just wondering if we could ask you a couple of questions.
You know what? I don't have time for questions, but thank you.
Wait. Couldn't help but notice your trash cans were already outside. Bosco, remind me, what's the earliest trash can go outside?
Last I checked, it was 4 p.m. the day before pickup. Any earlier is a $50 fine.
Okay, fine. What do you need?
I have to say, I admire your well-manicured lawn. Do you take care of that yourself, or any high professionals?
We use Chuck's lawn truck.
Have you heard anything about what happened down the street at the Wright's residence?
Yes, it's terrible. I can't believe something like that would happen around here.
Absolutely horrific. The grass is damn near 4 inches long.
No, Pete was murdered. Hannah's been in pieces about it ever since.
Word on the street is you and Mrs. Wright were pretty close. Have you spoken to her since the incident?
You could say that.
Mrs. Wright ever mention who takes care of her lawn?
She uses Chuck, like almost everybody else in the neighborhood.
What day of the week does Chuck come each week?
Comes on Mondays. Chuck cuts all the lawns himself. Takes him nearly all day.
One last question. How long has Mrs. Wright been staying here?
Who told you that?
We have it on good authority, ma'am, that Mrs. Wright has been staying here since at least Monday night.
Awfully convenient, isn't it? Wife goes to stay with a friend on Monday night. Husband found dead in a house with an overgrown lawn on Tuesday.
You know what? Sorry, guys. I have to go to work.
We also noticed you have a loose shingle on your roof. Pretty pricey job if you want to avoid fines. Why don't you go get Mrs. Wright and we'll be on our way?
Thanks, Jenny. I'll take it from here.
Mrs. Wright, this is an official summons to appear before the Second Circuit HOA Board of the Bubbling Brook Subdivision Friday morning at 8 a.m.
All rise. Please be seated.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what Thomas Jefferson said when he wrote the Declaration of Independence. But Mr. Wright lost his life, didn't he? His soul liberated from his body. Now this neighborhood can't pursue happiness because of the eyesore that is the Wright's lawn. That wasn't always the case. The Wrights used to have a happy family. They used to have a well-manicured lawn, but not anymore. Why is that? Mr. Wright has a bullet in his chest, and last we checked, the grass is damn near 4 inches long. Now, Mrs. Wright, answer me this. Who cuts your grass?
Chuck's lawn truck.
But Chuck didn't cut your lawn this week, did he?
No, he didn't.
And why is that?
I don't know.
I find that hard to believe. I find that very hard to believe. Mrs. Wright, did you like Chuck?
He did a fine job.
I would hazard a guess he did more than just a fine job, on account of we have eyewitness testimony saying that you would give Mr. Chuck lemonade every week.
Yes, I would give him lemonade on a particularly hot day.
And sometimes Chuck might come inside the house for his glass of lemonade, wouldn't he?
I don't recall.
Really? Well, we have eyewitness testimony saying that Chuck will come inside for lemonade almost every week. We also have eyewitness testimony saying that you and Chuck were at Applebee's last week. The two of you go to Applebee's often, Mrs. Wright?
I don't recall.
Chuck was more than just your lawn guy, wasn't he?
Yes.
When Chuck was over, the weeds weren't the only thing being eaten, were they?
No.
You and Chuck were having an affair, weren't you?
Yes. Chuck and I were lovers. And Peter found out, and he fired Chuck, and he said he didn't care if the lawn ever got cut again.
Order!
Peter and I were arguing, so I went to stay with Jenny that night. Chuck called me and said he was going to come over and finish it once and for all. I begged him not to, but he wouldn't listen to me. He said he would kill me if I told anyone. He shot Peter. He shot him. It was all Chuck. He shot Peter.
But he didn't cut the grass, did he?
What? No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
After hearing the prosecution's case, it is the opinion of this court that you should be sentenced to the maximum penalty allowed under law. This is not something that I take lightly, nor is it something that I take pleasure in. The court has never handed down a penalty this severe in the 2 decades that I have sat on this bench. Mrs. Wright, I hereby sentence you to a $250 fine, or get that grass cut by 4 p.m. this Friday. Court is adjourned.
I guess that's score 1 for the good guys.
What are you gonna do now, Bosco?
I've got to go home and mow my lawn.
I thought Chuck's lawn truck cut your grass.
Not anymore. That guy's in federal prison.